SGIP electronic meeting. We have. Are we online?
We are live.
Okay. Again, I want to welcome everyone to our very first SGIP eConference or e-meeting that we have this afternoon. And the agenda that we have today is I will give some opening remarks. John McDonald, Chairman of the Board. And then we'll turn it over to our new Executive Director, Patrick Gannon. With some welcoming comments and some additional information for us. And then we'll go to George Arnold from NIST, and we'll talk about, George will talk about the ongoing NIST commitment to the SGIP. Then we'll have brief reports from three committee chairs, John Caskey for Technical Committee, Mike Coop for the Membership and Marketing Committee, and Dave Forfia for the Nominating and Governance Committee. And then we'll finish, I'll finish with some information on the international activities and closing remarks. So let me begin on the next slide. My opening remarks. You know, we've talked before about the estimated U.S. smart grid investments of $1 trillion. This was an analysis done by the Brattle Group for the Edison Foundation projects that to keep pace with the rising U.S. electric demand, that the entire power industry may have to invest well over $1 trillion by the year 2030. In addition, with respect to the U.S. investment program, NIST has said that their Smart Grid National Coordination Project, which leads, coordinates, and manages the national public-private partnership effort to develop interoperability standards for the smart grid, that fulfills their NIST statutory responsibility under the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007. But NIST has said in order to ensure that the estimated $400 billion of industry smart grid investment over the next 20 years will be interoperable and secure. This is key for the industry. It's key for the role that SGIP plays to make this a success. And I think, as we all know, you know, we've transitioned, are transitioning from traditional boxes or devices and systems into a solution, a holistic solution. And, you know, the difference with solution approach is that we start with the customer, find out what the business needs of the customer are, and then determine what technology components should be integrated for this solution. And, you know, the success of an integrated solution with these technology components is truly based on interoperability, which requires industry standards. So the industry, you know, NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and NARUC, the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, has recognized the work that SGIP has done and said that it's the best vehicle for developing interoperability standards that will accelerate the development of the smart grid. Yeah, the SGIP ecosystem, we have 22 stakeholder categories, and this ensures that because smart grid is so expansive, this ensures that we have, you know, as best as we can do, adequate representation across the expanse of smart grid, which includes consumers, markets, generation, T&D, suppliers, service providers, academia, advocates, associations, regulators, standard development organizations, and others. And, you know, we not only identify existing standards that we should leverage and use to a greater extent, but also look at gaps where standards don't exist and identify the appropriate standards development organizations to develop those standards and work on coordination issues. And also, we've established and maintained the catalog of standards, which we'll hear more about in this meeting today. So essentially, the SGIP is the hub of the smart grid ecosystem. As we have moved to the member-funded model, the value that members receive is extremely important. It's important for us to articulate that and make sure that the industry understands that what is the value of participating in SGIP, and we see that from we'll talk about three different perspectives. First is the industry as a whole. From an industry point of view, the SGIP, with the SGIP, there's more efficient and effective deployment of the technologies and best practices. With standards, we have much greater chance for success with integrated technology, interoperable solutions, which can speed up and accelerate the realization of benefits, including cybersecurity, and improve the regulatory treatment for the recovery of investments. Now, for organizations that have joined and participated in SGIP, from an organization point of view, it ensures a seat on the bus, okay, to shape the smart grid standards and policy. So what's important is that by participating, you have the opportunity to drive and influence standards development. Also, you have a voice in discussions and debates, and again, to influence the work that's done. You vote on the proposed standards for the catalog of standards. And as we all know, standards, and particularly harmonization of standards across countries, and this is why the international effort that we'll talk about a little later is so important, that it really enhances our commercial opportunities worldwide. Proprietary or regional standards are very much trade barriers, and if we can harmonize standards across larger international areas and regions, these trade barriers go away and the commercial opportunities greatly increase. And we should look at a third perspective, which is the individuals that participate in this work with SGIP. You can grow your network, increase your knowledge base. Personally, you can influence the work that's done. And again, it can be very much game-changing type of issues and decisions that are being worked on. And it helps the individual stay competitive, informed of what's going on, not only today, but where the market is heading, the technology is heading, and connected with other stakeholders. So membership in SGIP helps the industry, helps the organization, and just as important, it helps you as an individual. Okay, so at this point, what I'd like to do is conclude the opening remarks, and I'd like to introduce our new Executive Director, Patrick Gannon, who will give some welcoming comments and then some other information for everyone. Patrick?
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. And welcome to SGIP members and interested parties. This is really an exciting time for SGIP, and for the entire smart grid, both in the U.S. and around the world. I know how critical having a secure and reliable smart grid is for our future, and how important the standards are and the role that they play in coalescing the industry and also helping to drive innovation, assure safety, and in fact leveling the playing field, and actually encouraging innovation and development. These are really big challenges, and quite frankly, I'm thrilled to be a part of this activity. SGIP today is the most important organization to bring all these elements and organizations together in the smart grid world. Not only for the technical interoperability, which is part of our mission, but actually also for the interoperability as people working together. Because it's only by working together that we can take on this most significant infrastructure program. And I find that SGIP is truly becoming the home for the international smart grid marketplace. The smart grid ecosystem is like its own multi-trillion-dollar marketplace, and we see SGIP at the hub of all that. That's the reason I've become involved with SGIP, and I believe we do have the momentum to move forward to meet that promise and those goals. Once we have the platform in place, we'll begin to build the services around this, and from that, be able to move forward here. And one thing we have here, going forward, is the success to build on the public-private partnership that's been in place. The stakeholders have certainly created a sustainable process that allows us to vet the standards from many different standards development organizations. And as you well know, we have 56 entries in our catalog of standards. So with this transition to a membership-funded association, we are creating a new organization with a core staff and service providers. And I'm happy to announce that we have over 120 companies that have signed up for membership in the new SGIP program, and expect many more to commit during these transition period here through the end of March. SGIP is very fortunate to have the ongoing commitment of NIST and many knowledgeable staff to continue supporting this effort. You will hear more from George Arnold on that, and you'll be hearing more with updates on the technical committee, the membership marketing committee, and the nominating governance committee. So now let me go on to a little more details. Next, please. As you know, SGIP's mission is to provide a framework for coordinating all smart grid stakeholders in an effort to accelerate the standards harmonization and to advance the interoperability of smart grid devices and systems. We are moving forward on the execution of that mission, but with a more market-driven focus and set of support services. We are building the member support services that will make your involvement with SGIP more efficient and effective. But in order to achieve this level of efficiency, we need your membership funding. We are focused on building the smartest association infrastructure so you can be effective in building the smartest power grids. We will be building services that help our members to better navigate the smart grid ecosystem. An association like SGIP, with its 22 stakeholder categories, requires a robust and fair collaboration platform to support all of the different agendas, charters, decision criteria, schedules, and motivations. We are building that new platform right now as we speak. Once we have the new collaboration platform in place, we will be building services to provide our members with answers to their most pressing issues. We will map out the players in the smart grid ecosystem, identifying most pressing issues. And SGIP will continue to use our priority action plans, the PAPs that you all know, to track and influence those key issues. Some of the new collaboration tools include action item task tracking and even a cross-group project timeline feature that will help reduce the time and money spent in order to improve the results of this well-defined PAP process. And I know from my many years' experience in creating interoperability among people through the different standards associations, that when we have people coming together with a desire to work on a common problem and common goals, this type of services and platform is what's necessary to make the SGIP members more efficient and effective in producing the targeted results. So here's an overview of the goals that we have that is driving our evaluation and selection of service providers for the myriad support services that SGIP needs. These services will provide for easier education and navigation of the working groups and products. Our online collaboration workspace will more easily integrate the email list with meeting notices, document folders, action item task tracking, as well as balloting and even the document or ballot comments tracking. And so we think these are really important for providing this cohesive collaboration space. Our event management services will assist the working groups in coordinating face-to-face meetings, especially around industry events that are directly related to that group members' core interests. We'll support those efforts. And we expect that our communication services will enable us to keep specific stakeholder groups as well as the entire SGIP membership and the overall smart grid stakeholders informed of work product status that are of key interest to them. With our new tools and services, we can enable fewer but more productive meetings. We will be quantifying the business case for SGIP membership and more clearly articulating the benefits of that SGIP membership. We expect that this will provide a framework that enables our members to also be able to articulate these benefits internally to their management. These new member services will enable SGIP members to navigate and collaborate more productively. Next, please. This is an overview chart, and I will say we'll make the slides available so those of you will have time to study this a little more in detail. But what we're trying to do with this chart here is to identify the key benefits that relate to the types of services that are intended. First of all, to educate by clarifying the smart grid ecosystem, to enable better help in navigating by preparing roadmaps for the standards landscape, and facilitating the process with a focus on communications that help to shape the standards, and then illumination that helps to strengthen the value proposition and results. And what you then see is how we will be detailing those benefits for each of the categories. So when we speak of stakeholders, this is the entire smart grid ecosystem, non-members as well as members. So we'll be having communications even to non-members, but the key work and the ongoing internal status will be available to members. And so this is where we will be showing what's available to observing members versus participating members. So for example, helping the observing members by providing information that helps to provide leverage points on a category basis for one of the 22 stakeholder categories, and roadmaps and coordination relevant to their category. And then for participating members, an additional level of service that really begins to help those companies articulate these leverage points, roadmaps, and coordination specific that helps their company better navigate and facilitate the process. Let's go on the next. So here's a brief update on the organization. To give you a snapshot, there were prior org charts that had been part of some of the past SGIP member presentations, and what I've done is update here to try and give you a status of where we are today. So to help navigate this little org chart here, those little blocks that are, if you see them outlined in black, are positions that are filled in groups here. So the board is certainly still in place. That was previously defined. The legal services are in place as they've been doing that. What's new here is obviously myself as executive director. I have an executive admin, and we had concluded on the outsourced IT and collaboration service provider. In addition to that, from a staffing standpoint, I've issued the job posting for the Director of Technical Operations, and we have already received a number of applications and resumes for the position. Today is the cutoff. If there are any other interested parties applying for that, we would need to receive the cover letter and application. There is an email address that's indicated with the job posting on our website. You can find the information there on what we're looking for and qualifications, so an email address to send to. So if there are any other people interested in that or know somebody, we need to receive those applications by close of business today. I will be posting then a job posting for the Director of Marketing and Membership, and that will round out the core hired staff. We already have issued the RFPs for the 3 marketing and membership categories. The cutoff for those RFPs was earlier this week. We're in the process of reviewing those. And I'm also in the process of selecting accounting and HR functions for payroll and so forth. The other items that are kind of marked here with a white background are ones that were identified in the business plan for SGIP that as funds are received, grants are received, we'll be able to begin funding additional positions. And so those are identified there as part of our plan list, but we'll be taking those on as the funds become available. Next item. So here's a quick snapshot then on the activities that we've been undertaking. As I mentioned in the RFP, the request for proposals that were submitted, we concluded on the information technology and collaboration, selected the virtual and the platform provider Kavi. We've begun a project transition team. We've already been given the information to initiate the setup on that, so the clock is already running. It's the estimated 4 to 6 weeks, but we've been moving fairly rapidly just this week already. And the next key steps will be identifying the decisions around setting up the infrastructure for that. One of the key drivers in the selection of this particular platform, the Kavi platform, was the need for flexibility. So with that flexibility comes decisions, and so there will be a lot of work going on in the next week to 2 weeks to identify how we select the different options that are available to us around those different working groups that will be set up. And so those involved in that process will be having some input onto that, but we're working on our very quick time frame with a goal of having as much of this ready to go live by the end of March or 1st of April. I mentioned that the other 3 marketing, membership recruitment, the marketing communications, and the event management RFPs have received. Showing you here the number of proposals received. We're beginning that evaluation process. We're going to try and focus first on getting the membership recruitment service provider concluded and a decision made on that by next Friday, and then the other 2 to follow after that as quickly as possible with that. As you can see, though, the plan going forward is with a small core SGIP staff and with these highly valuable and best-of-breed service providers as our partners, we'll be able to provide an improved operations and a whole new range of services to our members. Next. So with this, what we'll be focusing on here is the benefits in using this key goals in terms of how we lay out the benefits as we set up the infrastructure for that. So as you know, the participating member organizations are those who have the ability then to designate someone to be a member on the committee or to stand for a board seat. It's only as a participating member that they can vote on issues in the standards that get put forward. Participant members are able to have their employees serve on multiple committees and to share and receive the members-only information, insights, and any of the SGIP proprietary information. And also, we want to emphasize that the employees of the participating member organizations also benefit by able to personally, by their participation, influence the shape of the smart grid standards. And we found that it now enables them to personally become thought leaders and recognized for their participation both in your organization and we think throughout the industry. And certainly that personal participation helps you develop contacts. That can be a very positive benefit to your own personal career and allow you to stay competitive. So we realize that it's not just being there, but it's actually having a vote in steering the direction of the organization. Next. As you can see from the list, so even on this first list, as I said, we're at 120 and counting, and we're receiving membership applications every day and working very diligently to get those processed and back out. As you see, already we have all the major utilities, national labs, state, federal regulators, many of the major trade associations, plus Cisco, Emerson. Next. We also have already on board GE, Honeywell, Intel, Johnson Controls, Lockheed Martin, Mitsubishi, NARUC, and many other associations. And then the last group here includes Qualcomm, Samsung, Toshiba, Underwriters Lab, even Zigbee Alliance. So we're really well on the way with our meeting our goal of transitioning here to that. Next. And one thing that's helping to drive this is the clear delineated membership fees, and a lot of thought went into developing this breakdown of fees here. And so you see that even small companies or one or two person consulting firms can join even as an observer for $250 or even $750 to participate. We think that's a very aggressive, low-cost fee, especially even for the municipal government agencies and so forth. And so, to date, this particular membership fee structure is working quite well, and I would be happy to announce that we've already, from that 120 plus who have signed up, we've been able to generate invoices for close to $900,000 in membership fees. So we're, like as I said, doing very well to target that. But we haven't stopped that process, and it will be ongoing. But we want to continue to encourage those to sign up now. Now at the end of the month, but it will be ongoing even after that. Next. And so, as was decided by the SGIP Board of Directors, this extended provisional period does expire at March 31st, and we've been having a very large undertaking to contact all members who were original participants and observers in the SGIP effort over the last 3 years. So many of you may have already received phone calls and hopefully have responded and begun that application process. If not, you can send an email to the membership@sgip.org, and if there's a question or something. But we posted the application package online. It has the actual application form as well as the price sheet and other explanatory questions that should be handle most of the information that's needed to walk that through your own internal procurement process. And again, if there's any questions that arise, please let us know, and we have staff that are responding to those as quickly as we can. And we will be taking all of the SGIP members, both the companies and many of the names that are provided on those forms. Those will be loaded into the database that we will then provide to the data conversion team, and they will load those into the CAVI workspace before the April 1st target date. So That's why it's also helpful to when you're filling out the forms, to be sure to put in there the names and email addresses of those employees who you want to have access when we go live. And so that's a key importance. So we encourage you to don't let your organization miss this opportunity and to get your applications in here before the end of March. Next. And with that, I will turn it back to John.
Well, thanks, Patrick, for that great overview. And you know, one thing that we've continued to talk about here as we've transitioned last half of last year and the beginning of this year is the ongoing support from NIST. And so we felt it was important to include today, you know, the different areas that NIST is continuing to support SGIP. And so at this point, I'd like to introduce George Arnold and have George talk to us here about what these areas are and the extent of the support that NIST continues to provide SGIP. George?
Thank you very much, John. And I would like to emphasize that it's not only NIST, but really the federal government, the state governments are really looking to the SGIP as the ongoing mechanism to realize the vision that Congress put forward in 2007 in the Energy Independence and Security Act for the creation of an interoperable and secure smart grid. This is recognized as an ongoing process. The grid is going to continue to evolve over the course of decades, and the essential underlying standards that will enable that need a mechanism through a collaboration between the private sector and the public sector to maintain and evolve the standards framework. So the basic responsibility that Congress gave NIST in the ESA Act of 2007 is still in force. And the NIST vision to create a mechanism whereby the stakeholder community could drive these standards and achieve this vision, as has happened in other key infrastructures for the nation. This evolution of the SGIP into a member-supported organization in which the government plays a participatory and supporting role is really the essential vision. So NIST is a founding member of SGIP 2.0. And in December, the NIST director, Pat Gallagher, signed a memorandum of understanding with John McDonald as chairman of the board of SGIP as the co-signatory. And this MOU lays out NIST's expectations of the SGIP in terms of its ongoing role to bring together the stakeholders to develop the requirements for the standards underlying the smart grid and do the coordination with the standards development community. And it also, in the MOU, laid out NIST's commitment and intent to continue its active technical participation in the work, to, as desired by the community, provide leadership, not just participation, but leadership where appropriate for committees and working groups, to collaborate with the SGIP in the coordination with international partners around the world, as well as continuing as a member, an active member of the organization, and providing various forms of support. So one means of support is through funding, and as I think everybody knows, NIST made available a federal funding opportunity announcement several months ago. The SGIP has applied for that, and I can't say too much about it because we're still in the process, but we anticipate making the award announcement in late March or early April, and as indicated in the FFO, The funds that are expected to be available are $750,000 in 2013 and $1 million in each of 2014 and 2015. So there's another very important way in which NIST has been and will continue to support the critical work of the SGIP, and that's through the commitment of its staff. What I've listed on this slide are the names. Many of these names are familiar to the community. These are key NIST staff members who lead various working groups, committees, and priority action plans in the SGIP. And these are just leaders. So we have many other NIST staff who work as participants in the work of these PAPs and DUGs and committees. So our intention is to continue that commitment of our human resources. It aligns with NIST's expertise and mission in support of standardization for the electric grid. And we fully intend to continue at both leadership and technical levels to participate in the work. So, John, I hope I've conveyed NIST's commitment to this process, and the last point I'd like to do is thank the membership of the SGIP for continuing your involvement, and especially the leadership of SGIP in making just absolutely excellent progress in the creation of this member-led organization. John, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, George, thank you. And on behalf of SGIP and the board, we thank you for the continuing support. And as you said, George, of not only NIST but the federal agencies and organizations also. So we have, with SGIP, we have 5 board-level committees. And you can see 3 on the agenda that we'll have reports from. And in addition to the 3, we have an executive committee and we have an audit committee. Okay, so we wanted to have updates of 3 of the board committees this afternoon, the technical committee, membership and marketing committee, and the nominating and governance committee. And we'll start with the technical committee update from the chair of the technical committee, John Caskey. John?
Thank you, John. Also want to note that Bob Saint is the vice chair of this technical committee. There are 10 directors that are on the committee, plus several ex officio members, including representatives of some of the committees that John just referenced. The primary mission of the technical committee is really to assist the board in managing the technical activities of SGIP. Some of the specific objectives we have include to recommend prioritized budgets and to help the allocation of funds, particularly related to technical activities, to oversee the PAP process and the PMO process, the Program Management Office, and to oversee the operation of the other committees, particularly committees like architecture, testing and certification, and cybersecurity. So today I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of the things that we've been involved with, and then also conclude with some of the activities that are planned for the future. And right now we are meeting, just to let you know, we're meeting every other week. So the prioritization of the technical activities, we broke that into 2 phases. The first phase was really to have a historical look at the work that's been done, that historically NIST had funded Internext to the tune of about $5 million a year. So when we started developing the evolution of SGIP, we looked at what it would take to move the organization forward. So we basically, in this particular case associated with the technical activities, looked at all the technical activities that were being done by the variety of the PAPs and the DUGs and the committees, and tried to identify a cost associated with each of those activities. And then we went through a fairly analytical process of prioritizing all of that work. So if we magically had $5 million, we now have a prioritized sort of organization of how to move forward with all that technical work and all of those technical resources. Basically, during that process, we've concluded that it'll probably take about $1.7 to roughly $2 million for the basic business functions of the organization. So that's a lot of the things that Patrick has already talked earlier. So what we did in this phase one was then to say in terms of blocks of $500,000 each, once we get the 1.7 or $2 million, what are then the next technical activities that we would start expanding on? So that's sort of phase one, that's complete, and that information was provided to the chair of the board of directors. The second phase is really to look at where we are now with the fact that we've got 120 members and they represent, I think, something on the order of $800,000. How do we continue this technical work in the near term before we obtain this additional funding? So we're sort of going back and sort of reassessing with each of these PAPs and DUGs and committees what are the critical needs that they need to maintain. Well, we plan to maintain all the work, but what are the critical technical resources that require funding that they need to maintain in the near term? So we've gone out to all of the PAPs and DUGs and the committees. We're collecting that information, and hopefully we'll have an assessment of that done within the next couple of weeks and be able to say, okay, these are the critical technical resources that we need to start funding in the near term to make sure that all this work continues on schedule. So one of the other activities that we did was dealing with what we're referring to here as this privacy meeting, and it was really an open meeting that we coordinated on behalf of some of the utility organizations, including Edison Electric Institute, National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, and American Public Power. And their fundamental question was related particularly to cybersecurity and privacy issues, is what of the work that we're doing really relates as SGIP to the technical interoperability functions, and what of the work that's being considered or undertaken really relates more towards policy type issues. So we had an open discussion about that. We actually, as a result of that, identified some major questions, like dealing with training or legal issues or things like that. Are they within the scope of this SGIP Smart Grid Interoperability Panel, or are they sort of outside and maybe a different group should be functioning on? One of the other big questions that came out is that there's an awful lot of different organizations that are involved with privacy-related things, and how does a smaller company, or how does a rural cooperative or people like that, or NRECA in general, how do they effectively participate with all of these various organizations that may have an agenda item that references policy or cybersecurity? So just that it's an impossible task to cover all of those things. So how do they, in essence, prioritize that work and their contributions to those different areas? And then in addition to that, there are several subgroups under the Cybersecurity Committee, and just wanting a better understanding of how all that work is accomplished and how all those different groups interrelate to one another. So one of the action items that came out of all that work is really to develop a roadmap. This is something that the technical committee already had in mind doing for all of the aspects of Smart Grid, but basically what we've concluded to do is, for the first effort, is to look at privacy issues and all of the different groups, within the SGIP as well as outside the SGIP, and what are they doing and how do we relate to them and how do we move all that work forward. So that's one of the outcomes. Another outcome was really that currently on the technical committee, with the 10 directors that we have, there's no director that's specifically representing the consumer side of things, and it was a recommendation of this open meeting that we had to look at having someone added to the technical committee who would represent more of the consumer issues or the consumer's interests. So we're looking at that now and trying to resolve that in the near term. And the other thing was just that the utility groups asked we go ahead and document what was discussed at the privacy meeting and then share that with the board of directors. And I have since completed that action item and shared that with the board of directors a couple weeks ago. The next thing down here is the ANSI Standards Portal, and the idea here being that Internex, the administrator under NIST, had developed a working relationship with ANSI and had a contract in place that called for ANSI to essentially negotiate arrangements with a variety of SDOs to be able to provide standards and other documents that were needed for some of the work that's being done by the PAPs and the DUGs and the other committees. So the basic idea being, if a PAP is, in the middle of reviewing a standard, for everybody on that committee to purchase that standard, or on that PAP to purchase that standard, can be fairly expensive, as well as there's a lot of regulators that are starting to look at what we're doing, and they also need access to these standards, and they don't always have the funds available to be able to look at all those standards and other documents. So this was a contract between ANSI and Internex for ANSI to provide this service. I started early on to evaluate the needs for this particular service going forward. It looks like it is something very important to all of our working groups and DUGs and other parts of our organization. So I have gotten a proposal from ANSI to move forward with this work. And right now we're looking at what point we'll be able to fund this work going forward to make sure that we continue to have access to all these standards. So it's viewed as an important and high priority task to go forward, but we just don't have the funds today to be able to do this. So we're hoping that in the near term we'll have some funds to continue this arrangement with ANSI so that we can continue to provide these standards for free for all of these various working groups that need them to accomplish their task. The next item on here is the Program Management Office, and one of the objectives of the Technical Committee is to really oversee the Program Management Office. So just want to let people know that we are working very closely with Patrick, the Executive Director, on how do we make a smooth transition of all of what was previously done through this Program Management Office to the new organization with help from the Technical Committee. So we're working on that, as well as, Patrick and I worked early on, I guess the first day he came on board, to discuss this Director of Technical Operations, because that position in itself is very critical to making sure that all of this stuff moves forward, particularly from this technical slant. So we are working on that, and Patrick is hoping, as he's mentioned, he's already received quite a few resumes. That position closes today, and then hopefully he will have some interviews and make a selection hopefully by the end of March. The last thing down here is a catalog of standards process, and hopefully people already know that the Architecture Committee and the Cybersecurity Working Group and the Testing and Certification Group and others groups, the implementation methods, review all of the documents that are submitted for consideration for the catalog of standards, and they begin asking, what is that process going to look like going forward? So just wanted to let everybody know that that process going forward will be very similar to the process as it now stands. There's very few changes that are needed. There are some, titles that have changed and other things that we need to integrate into the flow chart that shows how these documents are handled through this catalog of standards process. Beyond that, there'll be very minimal changes, so any organization that's already reviewing standards or other documents, I certainly urge them to continue to do that. So next slide, please. So these are some of the upcoming activities that we have associated with the Technical Committee. One deals with the PAP pipeline. We are, resolving at the end of 2012. We actually wrapped up a few PAPs. We're in the process of completing a few additional PAPs, and the question is really, how do we refill that PAP pipeline going forward? So two different ways we will refill that. One is looking at the NIST framework, and there were a large number of documents and standards that were recommended for consideration that actually touch on the interoperability of the smart grid. So we are in the process of looking at all that material and seeing what of those should be transitioned into a PAP. The other thing is we certainly solicit ideas from the people that are on the phone today and the members of the PAPs and the DUGs and the other committees for additional topics that they think are important for PAPs. But certainly one of the objectives of the Technical Committee is to make sure we're looking at where there are gaps in the whole process and making sure that we are moving forward with trying to resolve those gaps as soon as possible. Relationships with other organizations, this is something that we need to work through in the near term. Certainly, I mentioned that we're working on these various roadmaps on how the SGIP works with all these various organizations. So in addition to developing the roadmaps, we also need to figure out what are these organizations we need memorandums of understanding with, such as the case of NIST, where we already have an MOU between NIST and SGIP, but do we need something similar to DOE or FERC or NERC or for various standards development organizations. So we're working through that right now. Then there's some transitional issues. We had some questions, since it's listed that the technical committee has oversight over a lot of different things. A lot of questions came to us in terms of how do we handle the transition and how do we move forward with a lot of this technical work. So one of the questions that came to us is what happens if there's a lot of members already working on a particular committee, and a lot of those members don't continue on into the new organization after April 1. So we're trying to figure out, if we do have a large committee and only a portion of those people go forward, then how do we make sure that all that technical work stays on schedule? So that's one of the things we're looking at now. We're looking at, what other groups should we establish liaisons with? Should we have liaisons with a lot of standards development organizations so that they can immediately support some of the work and objectives of the various PAPs and help fulfill those requirements? One of the other issues came up deals with copyright and things like that relative to the existing SGIP documents. How do they transition over? A lot of those will be moved over relative to the collaboration effort. And as we, so we do have sgip.org, that website. So we are starting to transition stuff that was in the existing Twiki. The existing Twiki will continue for an extended period of time, but we just need to look at what are the historical information needs to be transferred over at this point. Another simple thing is what, as we do have observers and paying members, what information do they get that's different than the general public? So we want to think about that a little bit more seriously to try and figure out what is generally available to everybody and what is kept internally to the SGIP organization. And the final thing down here really deals with oversight. And certainly no one on the technical committee has a time or the desire to micromanage the PAPs or the DUGs or any of the committees, but we're trying to figure out in the charter itself, what does this oversight really mean, so that both the PAPs and the DUGs and the committees, as well as the technical committee members, have some expectation of what that means. Primarily at this point, it means that we need to at least have interactions with those various PAPs and DUGs and know what their main activities are on an ongoing basis. But in addition to that, we have to have a simple mechanism so as we do discover gaps, and we have a good way to get those gaps fulfilled in a short period of time. So the final note down here at the bottom is really there's a lot of work to be done, not only in the technical committee, but in all the other PAPs and DUGs and the various other committees within SGIP. So certainly we need your help and we need your insights to make sure that we stay on top of all this stuff. So I certainly, as the chair of the technical committee, urge anyone on the phone that hasn't already joined SGIP to get their application in as soon as possible. So with that, John, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, John, thank you very much. Before we go to the next report, some of you, as we've been going through the material, you may have some questions for us, and I just want to make sure that if you have any questions, please post them using the questions tool on GoToMeeting, and we should have time after we finish going through our prepared material to address the questions that you have. All right, so please, if a question comes up, please don't hesitate. Use the questions tool and submit them to us. All right. Now let's move to an update on the Membership and Marketing Committee, and Mike Coop will do that for us. Mike.
Thanks, John. So the Membership and Marketing Committee has been very busy. Marketing Membership Committee has been very busy over the last few months. I serve as co-chair along with Scott Ungerer. Would also like to give a shout out and say thanks to George Belovic for his leadership as chair through much of the transition period. We have spent a whole bunch of time. We meet weekly on Wednesday afternoons for 2 hours. And spent a significant amount of time over the past couple of months developing the 4 RFPs that you heard Patrick mention earlier. IT, as he mentioned, has already been awarded, and membership recruitment, marketing, communications, and event management service providers are all under review and will be awarded soon. And needless to say, we're really excited about that. we wrote those as a committee, we reviewed those as a committee, and are eager to have some outside support. Any of you that have done alliance or SDO work know just how challenging it can be to try to represent everyone's interests in an environment where you have such a wide and diverse group of contributors. We've also been working very closely with the Milenthal Del Grosso folks, and want to give a shout out of tremendous thanks to them during the transition period from the NIST-funded effort to the member-funded effort. If you look at our responsibilities as the Marketing and Membership Committee, there's really three, I guess, key buckets. I'm going to talk to you about one of those today, but the responsibilities are primarily bucket number one is membership recruitment, retention, and engagement. Needless to say, we are thrilled with the fact that we have hired Patrick as our executive director and are looking forward to working with him for many years to come. The membership recruitment piece and really the retention piece, those of you that have already joined, we can't say thank you enough. For those of you who have not yet joined, we encourage you to join prior to the end of the month so there's no lapse in your membership. Marketing, communication, and education. If you think about the original effort from the NIST-funded SGIP, the Communication, Marketing, and Education Committee, we have evolved that now into the Marketing and Membership Committee, and we are going to be stepping up our efforts considerably in each of those areas. From a communication standpoint, a marketing standpoint, and an education standpoint. Keep your eyes peeled. We are going to be soliciting input and work product and contributions from all of you over the coming months and years. And then really the final bucket is face-to-face meetings, or meetings in general, but that really includes face-to-face meetings. And if you look at what we have planned for 2013, it breaks down into the annual meeting, which for 2013 we're going to do one. We may end up doing more than one moving forward, but in a moment I will tell you about that annual meeting, which again we believe is going to be a must-attend event for all of you that are here with us today, and really a whole bunch of other folks that aren't yet with us today. Periodic work sessions. So obviously the bulk of our work product goes on via our conference calls, and that's going to continue. What we have seen be very successful over the past 3.5 years are these periodic face-to-face sessions. So each of the work groups are still going to have their own flexibility and autonomy to meet in person on an as-needed basis. And then we will continue to have these quarterly e-meetings. You may remember those being referred to as plenaries. That's a past term. The new term is e-meetings, at which we'll be providing you updates and discussing special topics. Mark your calendars now. The schedule for our next 2 quarterly e-meetings, Friday, July 12th and Friday, September 13th. And the next slide, John. So the annual meeting, save the date, please put this on your calendars. We will be meeting in the South Florida area near Palm Beach in conjunction with NEMA with their annual conference. We are meeting as SGIP the 5th through the 7th of November. The reason that we chose to tie in with the NEMA conference is it really gives a serious bang for the buck for attendees. So those who are planning to attend SGIP can very easily attend the NEMA conference. Those who are planning to attend the NEMA conference can very easily attend the SGIP annual meeting. If you look at our topics, there's the list. I'm not going to read through them, but I guess a couple of key things that I want to point out. SGIP meetings moving forward will be open to members and non-members alike. We will have members-only work sessions, But for folks who are not members, this is an opportunity to come to learn about SGIP and hopefully to make the decision, ideally there, because we'll probably take checks and credit cards on site. Give them the opportunity to actually join SGIP and see the value. And those first 5 bullets in those topics, those are pieces of the value that we bring as SGIP, where again, we believe that there is no other forum where you can enjoy and derive these benefits other than SGIP. We're also going to be coordinating events with other conferences to try to maximize our impact. So you have seen in the NIST-funded SGIP construct cooperation with a number of event management providers. Expect to see that really expanded. I think you're going to see us end up doing reciprocal sponsorships with other event planners, event management firms. I was at an event last week that, though small, I think is a fantastic potential reciprocal sponsorship opportunity for us next year. And I expect that we're going to be doing that much more than you have seen us do in the past. And this is really about continuing to get the message out, continuing to build value, both in SGIP and more importantly for our members. Because after all, it's for those of you that are members that you've seen the value. This is why we're all putting in the time to create this value. The value is for you and us as members. So if you look at who we may cooperate with, it may be IEEE, ISO IEC, EEI, NARUC, other SDOs, other industry alliances. Hopefully some of you were in attendance at the IEEE Smart Grid Technologies Conference in DC. It may have been last week, may have been 2 weeks ago, where I'm told there were a number of presentations, including a half-day tutorial on SGIP, which I heard were extremely well received. So again, look for us to continue that type of work, ideally on a much broader and ideally an international basis. For annual meetings, expect that we're going to get a save the date out there, perhaps as much as a year in advance. We all know that in this economy and from a logistics standpoint, being able to make your travel plans as far in advance as possible ends up being extremely beneficial. And again, this all comes down to how do we enable the membership and SGIP as a whole to even better collaborate and even make a bigger impact on the standards community and harmonization even better than we have in the past. Next slide, please. So again, if you look at the periodic work sessions, we have a whole bunch of different committees. The scopes are going to be determined by the DUG, PAP, and standing committee leadership, and will occasionally invite non-members to participate in those face-to-face sessions as needed, those subject matter experts. Generally, we're going to see most of the work go on via online collaboration. That is a tried and true method of success that we've seen over the last 3.5 years and will continue to do so. And we want to, particularly the face-to-face meetings, we want to make them as cost-effective as possible. I think back to a joint PAP, I think it was 3, 4, and 9 meeting in St. Louis that Aclara hosted a couple of years ago. Just an extremely beneficial day-and-a-half session. That was one of many that have been held by our various work groups over the last 3.5 years. We will continue to do that, and if need be, encourage and assist the work groups in doing more of those. When, again, it's going to be dependent on need. One of the key goals is to try to coordinate those in conjunction with other industry meetings. I know that a number of folks got together at Distributech last month and had some very fruitful discussions. So places where we're going to have critical mass already are very likely candidates for us to host these periodic work sessions. Next slide. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the quarterly e-meetings, we have the next two on the calendar, July 12th and September 13th. The e-meetings are when we provide updates such as this on what's going on with SGIP, what is potentially of particular interest from an industry standpoint, as well as discuss special topics. So in addition to marking your calendars, think about how you may be able to contribute or can continue to contribute to SGIP as we continue to grow the organization and continue to assist in providing influence and education really throughout the smart grid community. This is not just electric, this is gas, water, renewables. Many of the things that we've been working on we're far from being done with. In fact, we may not be done for decades. So we have a lot of work to do. We are excited that those of you who have already joined are here. For those of you who have not yet joined, we hope that you will join very soon, ideally in the next few weeks, so there's no lapse in your ability to collaborate and contribute. And with that, I will throw it back to you, John McDonald.
Very good. Thanks, Coop. Thanks for your report, and thanks for all your tremendous support. We really appreciate it. Let me go now to Dave Forfia. Dave will give us an update of the Nominating and Governance Committee. Dave?
Hi. Nice to see a lot of familiar names from the people who've been participating in the Nominations and Governance Committee calls for the last 6 or 7 months on today's e-meeting. What I'd like to do is go through where we are with elections. Essentially what we've done is ask the board to hold a call for candidates for the stakeholder categories that would have normally expired at the end of December, which were the even numbers, as well as the vacant stakeholder categories. And at this point we have 7 stakeholder categories that are vacant. Those include investor-owned utilities, government agencies, state and local regulators, which are odd numbered stakeholder categories, as well as electric, transportation, plug-in hybrids, category 4, municipal utilities, category 6, and electric and financial market traders, which is category 8. So essentially what we're trying to do is go through and get those vacant positions as well as the even numbers re-elected. What we're looking for is members who are in good standing, and good standing means that you have applied to be a member as of April 1st. You don't have to have paid by April 1st, but we're looking for member organizations who are in good standing as of the 1st of April to nominate candidates for the elections. We expect to get through elections and have those new directors seated about the 1st of July. For those who are in even number stakeholder categories, you'll have a shorter term if you are the director elected. Your term will expire in December 31st of 2014, so you go from July until December of 2014. For those who get elected in a category that would have normally been done in December, which means you were elected in an odd number stakeholder category, you'll have a short term. You'll go from July until December. So if you are elected for that category, you will stand for election again for the elections that will held for the rest of the board for seating the 1st of January of 2014. Next slide, please. So essentially look for a call for candidates going out to participating members of SGIP early in April. Covered who we're going to go out for. It's the ones that are currently vacant and the ones who would have expired. At this point, we are still hammering out the final process for all the alignment of the prior SGIP 1.0 election rules and aligning those with our bylaws. It looks really similar for those of you who were SGIP 1.0 members. However, there have to be some edits to align with the bylaws, and we're still working on them at the NGC. We expect to have those all to the board for a vote prior to the 1st of April. And then I'll do a plug for those of you who'd like to help participate for the remaining 3 meetings of the NGC. We have been using the BOPWIG interest exploder list that's still available and still functions off of the NIST Wiki site. All the meeting materials as well as the work products that we've been working on in the Nominating and Governance Committee have been distributed through that Exploder list. We will continue to use that up until the last meeting before we come out of the transitional period, which will be Wednesday, March 27th. So I will continue to post materials to that site on the 27th of March. After April 1st, we will make the transition onto our new provider and begin using the new SGIP IT service provider and post the nominating and governance materials to that site. So for the prior three, we'd welcome any feedback. We do a lot of things via the Exploder list, solicit a lot of written comments to help us get through, and it has worked very well up to this point. So again, if you would like to submit or be a candidate for an open position for the elections, get your membership in and your application in by the end of the month, because members in good standing as of the 1st of April are the ones that can stand for elections and can nominate. And with that, John, that completes my report.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dave. So the next item I'll cover myself, and it's the international activities. So I touched on this earlier and how important this is. You know, when we travel outside North America and we talk about the SGIP work, it's important to convey, and I think many of the standards groups and the smart grid groups in other countries realize this now, but it's important to convey that, you know, this is started out as a U.S. effort, but quickly expanded itself such that with the 800 organizations that were participating in SGIP as of the end of last year, close to 200 of those were from outside the United States. So we've done a tremendous job in outreach and getting participation. And just as a quick recap, you know, we have signed letters of intent with the very first group was the Korea Smart Grid Standards Federation. And, you know, we should also mention that one of the items in that letter of intent, the agreement with them, was joint activities and workshops. And we had a very successful one-day Smart Grid Standards workshop with a sizable delegation from Korea that came to Irving, Texas, first week of December last year. So when we finished the SGIP meetings that Friday, then we spent the day on you know, a number of different subject areas, and each of the subject areas was had speakers from both SGIP as well as Korea. And it was a very, very good exchange of dialogue and a tremendous learning exercise for both groups and an update on what's happening in both organizations with respect to smart grid standards. And the second was the European Union and what they call their Smart Grid Coordination Group, the 27 countries of the EU, and you know, they've had mandates with the European Union Commission originally to complete the first set of smart grid standards and smart grid architecture as of the end of last year. That mandate's been extended, and in the international plenary that they held middle of last year, both George Arnold and I were invited speakers, and some other SGIP representatives were in attendance also. And we continue to coordinate with them both on the cybersecurity area as well as the smart grid architecture area with ongoing dialogues. Then the next was the Japan Smart Community Alliance. And a delegation from Japan, from this organization, and from NIDO the government organization, has been very consistent and very active with participating in each of our face-to-face meetings. And we signed an agreement with them, and I participated in their international conference middle of last year in Tokyo. And we continue to work with them. Then in Latin America, two countries that have countrywide efforts going on to put a smart grid strategy together for the country. First is Ecuador, and we signed an agreement with, it was through SENACI, which is the electricity regulator for the country, and the CEO, Gabriel Arguello, came to Portland for our meeting last July, and we signed the agreement with them. What's interesting is just a month ago, they finished their countrywide strategy for smart grid and had a celebratory signing ceremony in Quito, and I participated in that. And shortly after that, the meeting we had talked with them about SENACI, not just having a letter of intent with SGIP, but SENACI as an organization joining the new member-funded model of SGIP. And SENACI has completed an application and joined as a participating member. So it's exciting that they saw the value of not only the collaboration agreement between Ecuador and SGIP, but the value as an organization to join and participate. And then just in our last meeting in December in Irving, Texas, eConference, which is the National Standards Organization of Colombia, we signed the agreement with them, and they are very close as a country to completing their countrywide smart grid strategy, and we'll soon have a similar signing ceremony in Bogota or Medellin, one of the two, but it'll be later this year. So this is just, to me, it's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of interest, a lot of other organizations that have approached us and that we're talking with. We're also, with these groups, talking to them about re-signing or about negotiations to update, possibly, or re-sign the LOIs with re-looking at those with the SGIP 2.0 and see if we might want to change the scope a little bit or change the priorities of what we're working on together. And as I said, ongoing discussions with other countries. I really want to put out a plea here to members to help us because we set up an international task force within the last 2 years, and obviously the first step is signing the agreement, but that's when really the work starts. And we really want to have account management, in a sense, of each of the agreements and have a member or a team of members assigned, let's say, to each of the agreements and work closely with a core group on the other side of the country and make sure that we have priorities in place, make sure that we're showing progress with the collaboration priorities, and periodically then report the status of each of these agreements to the Executive Committee of SGIP. This is critical, and we're really looking for those of you that would like to help, and particularly if part of your work is international travel and working with organizations outside North America, this type of activity with SGIP would fit in well with what you're doing work-wise. And so let us know if that's something that you would be interested in, and we'd like to get you plugged in. So, what's important is, as I mentioned, is harmonization of standards across international boundaries, which, as I said, facilitates commercial opportunities and breaks down potential trade barriers. So next slide. Okay, so as we start to wrap up, where are we now? Well, as you can see from what we've talked about, there's been a lot of activity going on, for a number of months. There's been a lot to do. We've been blessed with a very hardworking core group of folks that have embraced, everything that we've needed to get done. We've looked at the business needs, and I feel we've addressed the business needs. We're looking at, still continue to look at the roles and responsibilities of members and committees and working groups, and of course that's something that is ongoing. So the business sustainment plan that was put together last year, as you know, a lot of iterations, a lot of input from membership. We got the foundational documents completed, the bylaws particularly, and the intellectual property rights policy. The membership campaign is kicked off and has been said previously. We're up to about 120, 125 members. As you heard from John Caskey, the technical working priorities. It's a tremendous amount of work to identify 150, 160 different activities. The procurement policy was established. You just heard from Dave Forfia about the stakeholder board of directors elections, and we've done a lot of work with the budget and looking at income and revenues and expenses. So, as Coop said too, all of us are ecstatic that Patrick Gannon is on board as the new executive director. We're excited about having Patrick on board in the future of SGIP. We've set up the 5 these are board level committees, as we see on the bottom of this slide. The chairs of these committees and the work and the members of these committees have done a lot of work in getting the responsibilities that they have, addressing those and getting them done with a frequent rhythm of conference calls and emails and meetings to get things done. Next slide. So where are we going? Patrick talked earlier that we're moving quickly and getting the basic company functionality in place, also reaching out on important external relationships, and how do we, what's the best way for us to provide new, valuable membership services? So we've established the basic business functionality with internal staffing and looking at the outsourced service providers. A lot of work and a lot of progress has been made in those areas. Updating external relationships, you heard from George Arnold with respect to NIST. We've been talking with, the DOE and FERC also. And we're happy to say that NARUC, National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, and their new president this year, Philip Jones, has designated a regulator from the state of Iowa, Swati Dandekar, as the new representative from NARUC to the SGIP board. And she has participated with us on recent board meetings, and will continue in that role. And we went over the international agreements that we have and the fact that we're continuing discussions with other countries and plan to grow that with additional agreements. And looking at new services with respect to Patrick and his table had the the educate, so it's the ecosystem, to navigate with the standards landscape, facilitate with shaping the standards, and illuminate with strengthening the value propositions. Next slide. So we've had a theme through today with the different speakers that provisional membership ends the end of this month. And you and your organization really have two choices. You can join SGIP 2.0 as a participating member and influence the standards work to be strategic to your organization. Or you can let your competitors and other organizations do the influencing, and you and your organization then would simply react after the fact to what's been done by others. So, you really have a choice. Do you want to be the one leading, or do you want to be the one reacting? Me, personally, I prefer to be the one leading and making the decisions, and then let others react to what both myself and my organization has been able to do. So bottom line is, if you want to lead, be the driver with us, then please join prior to the end of this month, before March 31st, 2013. And if if you have any questions, when you look at the website, www.sgip.org, the membership application, the bylaws, the intellectual property rights policy, the dues schedule is all on the website. And since we first posted that information last year, as questions have come in, we've summarized those questions with responses. So there's a frequently asked questions document that if you do have questions, I suggest you look at that document first, because there's a good chance that the questions you have will be answered. But if they aren't, you can always email us or call us and right away, and we'll respond and get you on board. So you and your organization have a clear choice, and it's very important you think about this and think about, you want to be out in the front and driving or reacting. Okay, that's very important. So that's let's go to the next slide. And this is our last slide here. So we will continue to shape these standards, be in the forefront and influencing the industry. And again, please consider, if you're not a member already, please consider membership. And the deadline where provisional membership ends is the end of this month. So I had mentioned before about questions. If anyone had any questions, to post those. And
yes, John, we have several questions.
You have some? Okay. First thing I want to do, though, is we have some comments from Eric Gunther, who's participating. And what I'd like to do is, Eric, just turn it over to you here for your comments.
I may have to unmute.
Can we unmute Eric?
Yes. 1 second, please. Eric Gunther. Is that correct, John?
Eric?
Can you hear me now? There we go.
Yep, can hear you, Eric. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, John. I just wanted to note a couple of things. As the outgoing administrator, I want to offer my congratulations to the new team here, moving forward. That, of course, new and old team. We've been working together for some time during this transition, and my congratulations to everyone and working with us on this transition moving forward. And wanted to offer our continuing support from Enternex and myself personally to continue to support the transition as required. We're open to everyone picking our brain from the as required from the membership as well as the leadership moving forward. In my role as the stakeholder outreach coordinator, we've been in touch with the stakeholder community quite a bit. I get lots of questions about our involvement moving forward, and I want to take the opportunity to encourage all those on the phone here as guests who have not yet joined the SGIP 2.0 to do so quickly. Internex joined right away as a founding member, and we hope all other original members of SGIP join the 2.0 incarnation of the SGIP and continue this really important work. We're pleased to be a founding member of the SGIP ourselves, and we will continue to be volunteering in the effort as we move forward. Internex has been engaged in this kind of activity in our staff well before the SGIP existed in standards and the like, and we continue to do that in many venues, and our staff will continue to provide that volunteer support in a number of the PAPs and committees moving forward to provide the expertise that we have that may be helpful moving forward. So just wanted the opportunity to pass that along, and people can feel free to contact me for any other words of wisdom and encouragement and why you should join the SGIP 2.0. I'm happy to have that discussion with anyone who wishes. Back over to you, John.
All right, Eric. Thanks very much. Do we have other questions that have come in?
Yes. John, I'm going to go through the questions, and the group can please answer them. Here's question number one. You mentioned account management for progress with international partners. Will you have a similar form or process for following through on collaboration with international standards development organizations?
Yeah, that's something that John Caskey had mentioned in his technical committee report, that we're just starting to, actually just starting to think about. John, do you want to touch on that from the technical committee perspective?
Yeah, I would say I wish I had more to tell you. So far, basically, it's an action item on our list of things to do, but we haven't had a chance to discuss that yet. So certainly it's something that we need to look into.
So I think the bottom line is that it's on our list of items to do, and we will be addressing that very shortly.
Okay. Our next question. Will the annual meeting be limited to members only, or will there be a pay-to-play model for non-members to attend?
Coop, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I had mentioned that, but maybe I mentioned it too quickly. It will be, as the questioner asked, a pay-to-play model for non-members to attend. One of the goals in moving forward is the new annual meetings will not just be restricted to SGIP members. So we will have a track that provides topics of interest to non-SGIP members. Likely for SGIP members, there will be some form of discounted admission off of the standard admission.
Thank you. And if you could please repeat, the annual meeting will be November 5th through the 7th in the Palm Beach area. There was a question on...
That is correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
And when we talk about this as being must attend, does that mean that members must attend, or is it just a great meeting?
It's a great meeting. I can't imagine why anyone would not attend. But no, it is not. It is not mandatory attendance, but we will follow up with folks to see what their excuses are if they manage to not make it in person.
Okay, next question. What does it mean to be an observing member? The participating member is defined, but this person would like to know what the observing membership is able to do.
John, do you want me to handle that?
Yeah, go ahead, Coop. You can handle it.
Yeah, so participating membership provides access to a access to board seats, access to board votes, access to committee work and contributions. Observing membership provides the ability to represent yourself as an SGIP observing member. You receive newsletters and other topics of interest, but the actual hands-on, roll-up-your-sleeves work is restricted to participating members.
Okay. Someone is asking that they joined as a member in November of 2012. Do they need to renew?
No. The memberships that were done at the end of last year were effective through the end of 2013. So they are members through the end of this year.
Another question is whether the SGIP members that are on the website, is that the most current one? The answer to that is yes, it is. Okay, here's a question. I'm not sure that we'll be able to answer this one specifically, but is CSA Group representing Canada or just themselves, given that many Canadian companies that are already members are interconnected?
What's the question again, John?
Is CSA Group representing Canada or just themselves?
GSA Group?
CSA, I'm sorry. C as in cat.
CSA Group.
Hey, John, do you want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we've had extensive discussions about what representation by a foreign government or a department or ministry means. So CSA Group would be representing themselves, while we hope that they would be representing the overall interests of the Canadian government and Canadian industry. They are representing themselves, and there's no concept of of national pass-through participation or anything like that. So CSA members, we certainly hope will be participating, and we hope that other Canadian organizations will be joining too.
I guess, Coop, we could say that's similar to analogies in the U.S. here would be EEI would be a member, but then the individual investor-owned utilities would also be members. APPA is a member, but all the individual municipal utilities could be members, and likewise the NRECA is a member, but the individual cooperative utilities could be members.
Okay, next question. If SGIP is to shape standards, is there consideration of seeking accredited SDO status for SGIP in the future?
John, I'm happy to take that one too if you want.
Go ahead, Coop.
So this is another topic that I think all of the committees have discussed. One of the considerations, at least from the Marketing and Membership Committee, is we're not setting standards. We are identifying gaps and helping to harmonize standards between the various SDOs. There may be motivation for us to become recognized as an international SDO, and we're going to be exploring that as we continue our growth. But right now, we want to ensure that the standards development organizations who are actually doing the work developing the standards, that they don't see us as conflicting with their missions, and that they don't see us as potential competitors. So I wouldn't say that we have made a decision to not go down an SDO accreditation path, but I will say that at this point, we are studying it and have not come to a decision.
Okay, next question. How will funding be used on technical activities?
Yeah, John Caskey covered that pretty well, I thought. But John, do you want to respond to that question?
Sure. So that we basically have the first cut of a prioritized list of all of the activities that were proposed for 2013 from all of the PAPs and DUGs and committees, and that's sort of our backup plan. And as we get money beyond the roughly $2 million into SGIP, then we would allocate that so far in blocks of essentially $500,000 each. Of these are the next that could be funded as a result of this prioritization effort. But right now we're redoing that effort, if you will, to take into account other things like, are there committees that may need a technical resource that historically had been provided by a paid technical resource that could be complemented by another member's contribution so that they would not need that paid resource. So when we went out and solicited input from all of the PAPs and the DUGs and the committees, that input sort of fell into two different categories. One was really technical staff resources, like what we had referred to as the technical champions in the past. And then the other category really dealt with being able to run, one meeting a week with 300 participants, and then are we going to have, webinar type access? Are we going to have database access, and a variety of administrative and technical things. So those variety of administrative and technical things are covered pretty well through the RFPs that we discussed earlier. So what's really not accounted for yet are the paid technical resources in terms of consultants. And again, we're looking for other alternatives to meet that need in the near term, particularly finding other volunteer with that technical knowledge that may be able to complement what the PAP or the DUG or the committee is doing. And then we are reassessing, if a particular committee does need literally a paid technical consultant to help achieve their work or help evaluate standards relative to the catalog of standards inclusion, then we are going through and reprioritizing, we're going through and collecting more input and more details on that now, and then we will reprioritize that in light of the priorities that we obtained as we went through the first set of information. Hopefully that's helpful. So it's sort of in a nutshell, it's looking at what can be accomplished in other ways other than just paying for a technical champion. And then if we do literally need a technical champion, that's the only way to achieve that work, then we're referring back to that phase one analysis that looked at the priorities of all those activities.
Okay, next question. How does SGIP plan to attract subject matter experts to efforts that now need a particular kind of expertise?
I'm not sure. This is John Caskey again. So I guess there's different flavors of that question. One of the points is that the committee chair or the PAP chair or the DUG chair are looking and seeing if the only way to achieve and continue that technical work is with the paid consultant essentially, or whether there are other resources out there to meet that same need. So the chairs of those groups are trying to assess that to the best of their ability. And there will be some cases where there will not be a simple replacement technical expert to support that work, in which case then we'll have an opportunity to prioritize that and then come back to the board to say we need funding or we're requesting funding for these 3 or 4, whatever it is, technical resources that we can't find another way to accomplish that task.
I'd like to add, too, that, there's no reason why subject matter experts themselves see the value in participating in SGIP and get plugged into the work activities that are in their technical areas of specialty. And, their organizations join SGIP and then they get plugged into those work activities and participate actively. So that's what I hope that just as we've said through the material today, that just the work activities, the things that we're doing, the fact that you want to be in there and influencing what's happening. You want to keep up with with other subject matter experts in that area in the industry, so you see the value in joining and the value in participating in the work activities yourself.
Another question here. Do the observer members get access to the names and information of all other members?
This is John Caskey, and that's something that... Well, is Patrick on the phone? Patrick and I have just been discussing this with the collaboration team and how we prioritize this and what information is available to what people. So Patrick, if you're still on the line, you're welcome to answer that question.
You're talking about specific how we support the groups with the collaboration group. I didn't quite understand exactly how that directly correlates to the collaboration work.
Sorry, Patrick. The question was whether observers can have access to the names and information of all other members as part of an observer status.
That is to be worked out. We have the capability within the collaboration infrastructure to make the rosters of each of the working groups visible to both participating as well as observing members. And that is the process we're going through right now of selecting those options for that. I believe it is the initial intent to make the rosters available at least for all members of SGIP. That would include participating and observing members. So anyone who is a member can see the rosters of the various working groups. That's our initial intent. As we go through on a case-by-case basis, we'll be looking at all of those.
Thank you. Another question here. Are you considering other sources of revenue, such as job listing boards and similar education efforts in energy management and intelligent buildings, etc.? Those are just two examples of educational efforts.
I could, possibly. I mean, we've identified initially 4 sources of revenue. Obviously, first is member dues. Second is government grants, similar to the federal funding opportunity George Arnold talked about with NIST. Third would be sponsorships. So when we do hold, like Coop talked about, the annual meeting in November, is organizations can provide sponsorships. That's a third source of revenue. And then fourth, which we haven't addressed yet, but we plan to, is looking at foundations and endowments for revenue. So I would say that we're open, to any potential source of revenue. Just in the beginnings of the SGIP organization, we focused on, the member dues and the government grants, and soon sponsorships. But we definitely will consider all potential source of revenue in the near future.
Thank you. Another question. Can members use the SGIP logo on their websites?
Yes. And so once we have the short answer is yes. Once we have the marketing services provider on board, they are going to formalize what the various processes look like. But the short-term answer is, for now, if you are a founding member, you may use the founding member logo on your website. If you are a member but not a founding member, you may use the logo on your website. If you do not have that logo yet, please let one of us know. You should be able to send, John Millenthal, do we have info@sgip.org set up?
No, we can have that set up quickly.
Yeah, folks, if you need a copy of the logo and you don't have it, please drop a note to info@sgip.org. Give us a little while to set that up, and we will ensure that we get the appropriate logo out to you.
In addition, after this session, we'll be sending out an email to all participants of today's meeting with some information on how to contact SGIP.
And John, we should remind everyone that we've recorded the session this afternoon, and the recording, right, John, will be posted on the website in addition to a PDF version of the slides that we used.
That is correct.
Are there any other questions, John?
Yes, quite a few here.
Okay.
Will we be charging for events and meetings, registration and attendance fees? I think that's in reference to the upcoming November meeting. Will there be a charge for that meeting?
We're studying that. I would be shocked if there was not a charge. The event management service provider, when chosen, will assist us in putting that together. But what you will expect, what you should expect as an SGIP member is discounted membership versus the, discounted registration versus the standard registration fees that non-members will pay.
Okay, a couple of questions here that are a bit related. Will there be remote participation support for all future SGIP meetings? And that same question is being asked whether there'll be web access even to the annual meeting in November.
John, I'll address that if you'd like. What we have discussed at this point is we will continue web access to the quarterly updates for the annual meeting and for the periodic meetings. That is under consideration. And again, I think this is a decision that the Marketing and Membership Committee will make in conjunction with the event management service provider and in conjunction with Patrick and the board.
And Coop, you would say then that even with regards to remote access to do meetings that are at face-to-face events, those two are also under consideration?
Yeah, my expectation is that we would follow a model similar to what we had done in the past, which is for the work sessions at the annual meeting, that there will be remote access provided free of charge. That is my expectation. Expectation is another word for an assumption, so please do not make book on that. We will, once the event management and member services service providers are chosen and begin working with us, we will have more news for the membership.
Thank you. Another set of questions that are somewhat related here. If you could please talk again about observer members versus participating members, just from a broad standpoint, and then specifically, there's a question on whether observing members can still participate in working groups such as PAPs and DUBs and things like that.
Yeah, so and let me clarify what I said before. I may have misspoken when I talked about observer rights to participate in work groups, standing committees, DUBs, PAPs. Observing members are able to participate. They are not able to chair the work. So one of the architectures that worked well for us with the NIST-funded SGIP, which John Caskey mentioned, is the Technical Champions architecture. You will see us move more towards kind of an IEEE or other SDO model where you have a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary from the group. Chairs and vice chairs may only be participating members. Observing members may participate in the work, but are not allowed to vote on the work or to chair the work. And John, what was the first part of that question?
Just a further clarification of observer versus participating members.
Yes, we have a chart that I believe was published in the original final business sustainment plan. We'll grab that chart and post it on the website in the very near future. So folks should check out sgip.org to learn more about the delineation between participating and observing members.
Okay, we have a few more questions, if you don't mind continuing here. I know we're at the 3 o'clock point.
How many more questions, John?
Looks like 1, 2.
I want to make sure we honor the time commitment that we have with finishing. So let's take. You have what, a couple more questions?
Yeah, there are about 4 more questions. I think it should be okay to get through these.
All right, let's get through those 4, and then
okay.
And we'll call it quits. Okay.
Is there a process to allow technical experts and invited guests to continue involvement in the committee work without joining SGIP?
This is John Caskey. That's something under review, but at this point we don't expect non-members to participate in committee work unless they are specifically invited for some short-term duration to participate with a particular task.
Okay.
Next question, John.
Next question. Looks like this is the final question. This is some further clarification about the subject matter experts that was asked before and how we plan on attracting subject matter experts. So regarding subject matter experts, a lot of these for the cybersecurity working group came from small organizations that may or may not be willing to pay the dues required. Cybersecurity is a really specialized area with regards to the rest of Smart Grid. Right now, looking at the current members, we'd like to see how we can get more of these subject matter experts to get involved.
Certainly, this is John Caskey. That's something that's been brought to our attention, and certainly we're very concerned. One of our major themes is making sure that there is continuity within that technical work and that we don't have any disruptions as a result of the ending of the provisional period. But with that said, we need to see what the committees and the PAPs and the DUGs look like on April 1 and see whether we've got all the sort of the brain power that we need to continue to accomplish those tasks, or whether we need to supplement that in some way. So we really can't make a decision in that, and we haven't adopted any policy other than that, you pay to play, if you will, type of policy. But we won't know until after April 1 as to does that disrupt the workload of the activities, and do we need to consider some other arrangement to try and get around that?
Okay, final question here. I'd like to understand the complementary documents / discounted documents referenced on the membership application. What documents would be available to observing members?
We haven't written those yet. That is one of the many revenue generating capabilities that we envision, which is document creation, and we envision either complementary or very low cost document access for participating members and less of a discount for observing members. But again, these are the types of developments that we'll be working on over the course of time.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
Is that it, John?
That is.
Great. All right. Wow, that was. Thank you very much for the questions that you brought to us. We really wanted to make sure that we conveyed important information about and an update about SGIP, but also have an opportunity for you to ask the questions that you had. So I'm glad we had as many questions as we did and be able to go through those. Let's end this session with again all of you going back. If you're not members, look at the value proposition information that we had in the slides today. Take that to your organizations. Really consider, again, if you aren't members, joining before the end of this month. Any questions, let us know. There's a lot of, again, question and answer information in the FAQ, frequently asked questions document on the website. And again, appreciate your time today. And I was able to go through a lot of my closing thoughts in the last couple slides. I wanted to see, before we finish, Patrick, do you have any closing comments or closing thoughts for everyone?
Yes, thank you, John. No, I just want to express my sincere appreciation and understanding of the absolute work that's gone in, especially with the sustainability plan and all this has been laid out, and I find this very, very helpful as we're starting up a new support organization, plus the dedication of all those who are currently serving in leadership capacities. It has been just overwhelming in terms of the amount of support that's out there, and it's been really gratefully appreciated. The working together as we're transitioning and trying to hire the new staff, I've just been very, very supported in that process, and I thank those who have been involved in this and continue, and especially those members out there who have, were able to stop by and see me at the IEEE ISGT event and send emails, and so I will keep trying to respond as we go, and thank you all for your continued support, and hopefully that we will have a great deal of participation going forward. We will continue to reach out and bring members on. We are really reaching out to be sure we get everybody on board we can by March 31st, but we will not stop there. We will continue to reach out and bring more members on. Thank you very much, John.
All right, and thanks everyone again for participating, and we really appreciate it, and we wish you a good rest of the day and a fantastic weekend. Thank you again. Bye-bye.